Okay, so you know, nothing without intelligence, nothing without a conscience can ever create something with a conscience, something with intelligence. Okay, something with a brain. So, um, that's. I mean, it's. I mean, honestly, what it is just straight denial of the one who put everything in order. That's one of the reasons why the Bible says God is a jealous God. I mean, just imagine if you cooked a nice meal for your parents. Your parents came home, saw a nice cooked meal, and all of a sudden they came in, and instead of thanking you, maybe they didn't thank you. Maybe they just came in and just started eating, or maybe they came in and thanked the dog, or you would be dumbfounded, like this meal didn't make itself. You got the ingredients, you followed the recipe, you did everything you need to do to make this nice meal, yet your work is being attributed to either nothing or something else that couldn't have done it. And you will be, very upset. So just imagine how God, who He put everything in perfect order, okay, and He made everything, so pleasant for us, and He created man so that we could glorify Him and be able to enjoy the beauty of His creation. And then, first of all, man sins, and now the world becomes a fallen world. But now you have His own creation rejecting Him, claiming He doesn't exist, blaspheming Him, just craziness. But these things that we have in this world, like I said, attribute to something having come before it, and there had to be a single starting point. I mean, no matter how you think this world, this universe started, at some point in time, you have to bow down to the fact that there had to be a single starting point. I mean, I don't see what else you can do, or what other logical explanation you can kind of have or come up with. You can only go so far back if you want to claim that it wasn't God. And whatever that thing is, I mean, some people might be stubborn and just, do everything in their power and not to give God the glory for it, and not believe in existence. And like I said, there are some people who are on the fence, and I'm not saying that they're stubborn, but just people who no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you tell them, okay, there had to be a single starting point. Where did these things come from? How were they just already there? What? And it's really, this is no answer for that. There's no answer for that. I was actually looking online, trying to find out a little more about Big Bang Theory, and I kind of, I think I got the gist of it. I mean, it still kind of confused me a little bit, but from what I read, apparently the universe, if you can imagine like a cornucopia, like one of the things that you see Thanksgiving photos where it's like this big horn thing and you got vegetables coming out of it. If you can imagine the universe started off, from what I read, that there was a tight, dense, hot closed, confined space of white hot fog of plasma. Okay, and eventually, from the density and the very hot temperature of the plasma, the reaction was an explosion. So upon this explosion, the universe started to expand, and it just continued to go and expand and expand and expand out. And as it expanded, the fog, this plasma, started to cool. And as it started to cool, it started to turn into subatomic particles, protons, electrons, neutrons. Eventually, those subatomic particles eventually became hydrogen. What was the other one? I thought I wrote it down. It was something hydrogen. I read something about traces of lithium and something else. It was something else, but they described that collection of things as primordial elements, and these elements apparently at some point in time were disturbed. You know, some people think it was some sort of supernova, some sort of star explosion or something like that. But there was some sort of a disturbance that caused the primordial elements to come together from gravity, came together, and eventually formed into stars and into galaxies. Well, I mean, that might satisfy, people who don't want to attribute everything to God. But even if that's the case, I would still have to beg the question, in the beginning, where did that white hot fog of plasma come from? Where did the idea or the law of temperature come from? How was that in place? Where did hot and where did cold come from? The fact that it started off hot, exploded, and eventually started to cool off. And the fact that as it cooled, that plasma started to change into, something else. The subatomic particles. And then that eventually changed into something else. You have these changes that take place, these laws that are in place, and, they don't give any reason as to how even those laws came into place. Why does temperature exist? How did it come, into place? And these are questions that, either they're not really asked, or, if they are asked, there's really no explanation for it. That's just how it was, But, something has to come from somewhere, there's no other explanation for it. Things just don't come out of itself. I'll give the example of a basketball coach coaching a basketball team. Basketball coach tells the players, look, run this play. On offense, run this play. If the other team, if we see an opening to run the play, run the play. If they close off, certain lanes, run this play, do this, do that. And then we get back on defense, run this type of zone defense. The coach had to be the one to implement those variances to take place. And my whole point is the fact that these changes are in place. It had to come from somewhere and someone putting those laws, creating those laws, and putting them, into motion. So the fact that they just existed, I mean, I don't see, I don't see how that's possible. I really don't. I want to look at another verse. I'm gonna turn to Psalms, chapter 19, and I'm just gonna read the first verse. Okay, and it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." So the firmament, I believe, is just like sky, like the atmosphere. But you see, it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." So, it's just saying the same thing, that the fact that one thing is here attests to the fact that it came from a higher being. Okay, it had to come from a single almighty source. Heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Somebody makes something, it had to come from somebody, and that thing that was made didn't just pop up on its own. Even, let me real quick turn to John chapter 10. I'm going to read verses 24 and 25. It's John chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. And this is Jesus talking to the Jewish Pharisees. They were like the religious people in those days. So this is what it reads, starting with 24. It says, Then came the Jews round about him, and said unto him, How long dost thou make us to doubt? If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. Jesus answered them, I told you, and ye believe not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. So we can see again, even Jesus, and this was to prove that he was God on earth. And that's, another topic for another video, showing that Jesus was indeed God manifested in flesh. But the connection I'm trying to make here, again, is just the fact that he said, the works that I do in my Father, they bear witness of me. He's letting people know, he's letting the Pharisees know that, look, I'm preaching to you, but I'm not just a man about words, okay? I am authenticating myself. These works, they verify who I am. They attest to what I'm saying, okay? There are, plenty of people who can, talk the talk, but then you say, well, can you walk the walk? And you hear people talking about actions speak louder than words. Well, they do, because if your words are true, then your actions should naturally follow. It's just that simple. So, here again, we see a situation where works show that, it came from someone, and it proved that someone was, almighty, all powerful, all intelligent, and all good. I'm not here to bash science. I mean, science is a wonderful thing. Science gives us a lot of explanation on things.